Welcome to Chaplain Chatter. I'm your host, Kevin. Today I want to chat with you about an issue that runs rampant in the first response world, and especially on the fire EMS side. That situation is sleep deprivation. You know, first responders often get stuck in what is called the sympathetic zone. We have the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic nervous system ramps us up. It gets us into that fight or flight mode. And the parasympathetic nervous system allows us to rest and relax and recover. So what happens with first responders is they experience a disruption to their normal wake-sleep cycle. When first responders are on duty, they're always on alert. They're kind of waiting for that next tone to drop, that next run to come in. And when the fight or flight mode is constantly turned on in fight mode, the body can't return to its normal rest and recovery phase. So that can lead to mental and physical issues in first responders. I'll talk about those in just a couple of minutes. I want to give you just a few stats here in this podcast. Almost 50% of fire service personnel get less than 7 hours of sleep while on duty. 37% of fire personnel show signs of a sleep disorder, which usually goes undiagnosed and untreated. There's a strong relationship between sleep deprivation and decreased job performance. You know, if you've been awake for 18 hours, it actually produces an impairment equal to a blood alcohol level of 0.05. So working 12 hours a day has also been associated with a 23% increase in personal injuries. Well, what do our first responders usually work? What are their shifts? They're usually 12 or 24, sometimes 48-hour shifts. And if they are not getting adequate sleep, they're going to have impairment. They're going to have an increased risk of injury. There's a fact sheet available online. It's accredited to Johns Hopkins sleep researcher Dr. Patrick Fannin. And some of the statistics from his research are kind of interesting. There are over 6,000 fatal car accidents each year caused by drowsy driving. And 1 in 25 adults have fallen asleep at the wheel in the last month. Sleep deprivation gives you a 50% higher risk for obesity if you get less than 5 hours sleep a night. There's a 37% increased risk for colorectal cancer, nearly 3 times the risk for type 2 diabetes, an increased risk of high blood pressure, and 48% increased risk for developing heart disease, simply because you've got poor sleep health. Sleep deprivation also affects the brain. There's a 33% increased risk of dementia, a greater risk of depression, irritability, anxiety, foggy thinking, and forgetfulness. You know, sleep deprivation can actually age your brain 3 to 5 years. In a recent article in Fire Rescue 1, this quote stuck with me. Firefighters often don't get enough sleep. Sleep deprivation can lead to real problems, including safety concerns. And even though these issues may seem obvious, it's surprising how little attention has been given to the role of sleep deprivation for firefighters. And I would even say how little attention has been given to the role of sleep deprivation for first responders in general, including law enforcement, dispatch, corrections. It's an issue. It's something that needs to be dealt with. Sleep deprivation doesn't just affect the fire side, as I just said. It affects law enforcement as well. You know, most of our law enforcement officers rotate shifts. They have responsibilities at home, family outings, family birthdays, anniversaries. They may have an extra duty assignment. They may have a secondary job. All of those things can affect the officer's wake-sleep cycle. You know, it's not uncommon for a first responder to get off work at 7 a.m. after working all night, go home, maybe catch an hour, 2, 3 hours of sleep, and get up and do a second job or do things with the family, that kind of thing. So sleep deprivation is a real issue. You know, Chaplain, you and I are in that same situation. Those of us that are first response chaplains Oftentimes we'll get an anticipation about being called out to minister on scene, or we get called in to assist with a critical incident diffusing or debriefing. There may be a first responder that wants to meet privately after a scene. And what happens? You end up being up all night. So we as chaplains have got to be careful to ensure that we're keeping our eye on our sleep health. Well, how do we do that? How do we develop better sleep health? What advice can we share with the first responders in our city to help them develop better sleep health? Well, the first thing is that better sleep begins with a healthy diet. Now, if you're familiar with the first response world, healthy diet is tough to do. It's tough to do, but you got to be intentional with what you eat. You should stay away from sugars, energy drinks, caffeine, especially before going to sleep. Another thing you can do is try to create a peaceful space. They recommend 60 to 65 degrees to sleep in your house. Limited lighting, limited sound exposure. You know how that is in a fire station, right? The tone drops, it's loud, the lights come on. It just makes it difficult to sleep. Another thing you can do is to slow down your screen time. Put down your phone, maybe pick up a book and read before, an hour before you go to bed. Now, this is a great time, chaplain, for you to pick up your scripture and read and meditate on that. So take a look around your house. Take a look around your stations. What can you do to help them get better sleep? There are a lot of fire departments that have switched to or are switching to the red lighting at night instead of the bright LED lighting, especially in the sleep areas, the restrooms, that kind of thing. A lot of departments will have blackout shades so that the windows, the sun can be blocked from coming in during the day. Fatigue education and awareness training is available. There's a program called the Sleep Matters Initiative that's out there. It's tailored for fire personnel, but it could be very helpful for all first responders. And the departments themselves can also make resources available for those who are experiencing sleep disorders. If you think you've got a sleep disorder or you've got a first responder that may have it, recommend they go to their doctor and see if they've got sleep apnea or why they're having difficulty sleeping. Sleep deprivation is an enemy of our first responders. It's silent. It accumulates. It sounds a lot like post-traumatic stress. If it goes unnoticed, if it goes undiagnosed and untreated, it could lead to mental and physical health issues. I want to encourage you as a chaplain, keep an eye on your city's heroes when it comes to their sleep health and their spiritual health. Keep an eye on yourself and your fellow chaplains. Listen, we all have to be on our best to serve our cities. Hey, thanks for being here today. Thanks for listening. Make sure you share the podcast with a friend, a family member, another chaplain, law enforcement, fire. We just want to get our voice out there. And we appreciate you. We love you. Praying for you. See you next time.